Hi, welcome to That Reminds Me Of, a podcast about film and the films that remind us of that film. You're here with Baron and the Doc.
And the Maestro.
Do we need another drink?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Baron.
Thanks, Doc. How are you?
I'm very well. You doing good?
I'm great. I'm great. And it's been too long since we've been in this studio.
How long, if you had to estimate, do you think it would have been?
At least 3,000 years.
Snap. It feels like at least 3,000 years.
I know. And the last time we did it was for Old Boy at the cabin when we were writing, which was before we went to see MIF, the films at MIF.
Yeah.
And the films that we are here to talk about today, or the one specifically in this episode, is a MIF film or a film we saw at MIF. Since then, it's gone on to be released in cinemas and people have had all the opportunity in the world to watch it.
I remember how excited we were about MIF in that episode. We're going to go to it. We're going to see 100 films. We're going to every day film from on location and do all this stuff. And it never happened. Although I saw 20 films. Like I went great. We didn't film any episodes, but I don't think you did as well. Were you a bit crook or something?
I got so sick right in the middle of MIF and it just killed about half of my film plans, more than half of them. Should I mention
Please.
that while we haven't filmed an episode together for a long time, it's been even longer since we've been filming an episode with the Maestro.
I know. It's been 4,000 years of
4,000
of Maestro-less recording.
Hi, everyone.
So we've got the team back together.
The team's back together.
We've been to MIF. We've seen a whole bunch of films. And one of those films that you did get to see and I did get to see, because I know we went to see it together,
Yep.
Was 3,000 Years of Longing by George Miller.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And was I excited? This is the one that I looked at the trailers and went, you know what? This could be incredible. George Miller making this film, this could be great.
You know, I don't think it was in my shortlist.
Really?
I think this is one that you kind of forced me into.
I think I probably did. Yeah, you're right.
I think you did. And from memory, I said we saw it together, but we arrived at different times and it was showing in two different cinemas.
Yeah.
So we saw it side by side at the same time, but not actually together.
And it was packed.
Jam-packed.
In fact, if there's one thing that's just come back roaring since COVID, it was MIF. I mean, MIF was insane. It was so busy. Every screening that I did make it to was absolutely packed and they all sold out so quickly.
But it was nice busy too. It wasn't sometimes MIF is overboard busy. This was just a nice, gentle busy.
Yep. So there you go. That's 3,000 years of longing for cinema at MIF. And people were just, once the opportunity was there, they were signing up for it. And there's a few films that I missed out on. The one that devastates me the most, speaking of Old Boy and Park Chan-wook.
The one that we talked about in our last episode that we were so excited about, especially yourself.
Decision to Leave. I, first of all, missed it because I didn't book my ticket quickly enough and it sold out instantly. And then a second screening came up because of all the interest. I booked it, got a ticket, and then just fell so dreadfully sick that I couldn't go. So that's rubbish.
Yeah, that is not making good decisions.
No. But you know what? It'll happen. It's out at cinemas, or it will be shortly.
It's out.
It's out. Okay.
It's out.
So we're going to see it.
I think it was at
have seen
Pentridge, wasn't it, Maestro?
I don't know, but I saw someone talking about it's out.
Yeah. Great.
And I saw it, So I've been bloody dying to talk to you about it. And I've been sort of so preoccupied with wanting to talk to you about it that I've forgotten what the film was about.
You've actually forgotten. And
so I'll see it again.
I will say that is part of the problem with this not strategy that we have right here, where we've taken way too long to get to this episode, is that it does feel like 3,000 years since, see, I'm just going to keep saying 3,000 years. It's going to happen.
No, you'll get a laugh at some stage.
At some point. If I keep saying it, it'll work. But it does feel like, great. Feels like the longest time since we saw these films. And I actually want to see them again. Both of them, the ones that we're going to talk about. And tonight, this specific one, 3,000 Years, but the next episode as well, is another film that I feel like I would like to see again.
Look, we may not have exactly the same opinions of this film, just putting it out there. But before we do, what else do we say to set this up? It's got Idris Elba, who I know is you got a crush on him, don't you?
Yes, but my wife in particular
has got more of one.
Oh my God. We can never meet him.
No, that must feel awful.
Yeah, I would like to meet him, but my wife.
Yeah, no, I understand. And Tilda Swinton. Are you a Tilda fan generally?
Sometimes I think Tilda can be too Tilda.
It's exactly how I would have put it.
Yeah.
Nicely said.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
maybe she is a little too Tilda at times in this film. However, I think it's good casting.
Yeah, no, she's very Tilda, but like Tilda is great.
Yeah.
It's just you can be too Tilda sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes casting her can feel like an obvious choice because it's a bizarre, weirdo kind of character that does strange things. Looks kind of like a librarian, but acts a little loopy.
Yeah, acts like a little schoolgirl.
Right.
Yeah, with an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
I actually, neither of us do this often, but I was listening to a podcast because it's been so long since we saw it.
Yeah.
Miller interviewed, and he was talking about Idris and Tilda, because I know him, saying what great people they are to work with. I know this is what they all say. He compared them to Jack Nicholson on The Shining.
Oh, wow.
As actors who want to be not just act, but make sure the film is made properly and be, not just do their bit and then go back to their trailer, but actually be part of the process, which could be code for be a pain in the neck as well.
Right.
But he was saying it in a good way, as if they were really invested in making it work. Okay, you've been involved in more films than me. I think you know what it really means.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think that's a perfect read on it. That does. So for one, if you've directed a film and you're doing an interview, you have to say nice things about the cast. So that's just a given. But then, yes, how do you frame it? And I think, yeah, like Jack Nicholson from The Shining says a lot.
Does it? Okay. Yeah. So, and look at me, naive, just lapping it up.
But then there's also like Kubrick from The Shining, which is also intense. So
Yeah.
I don't know what he's saying about himself in this situation. Who knows?
Another thing we should say about this film is that it's based on a book by A.S. Byatt, which is called The Djinn in the Nightingale's Eye.
Oh,
It's either maybe a short story. I really meant to.
that's an interesting title, though, isn't it?
read it before this episode. Geez, that would have been very literary of me.
That would have been on point and in character for you, but you didn't do it.
No, definitely.
Also on point and in character at the moment.
Yes.
For both of us.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's based on a book. George Miller loved it, the book. Yep. It sort of was one of those stories that stuck with him forever. And then he eventually made it and then called it 3,000 Years of Longing when he has actually done another film, a doco, called 40,000 Years of Dreaming.
Interesting.
Isn't that an interesting little
tidbit? He likes the formula of title. I don't know. It's very specific. There's a bunch of choices in this film that aren't blockbuster making choices. And that title is maybe the first of them. And then there's everything that follows the whole way through the film. It's filled with interesting choices that make the film a pleasure, I think. However, maybe don't set it up for box office success.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. I love that go where Hollywood doesn't expect you to go attitude.
Yeah.
And the title is just one. Why not have fun with titles? And that's
doing that,
That's
right?
doing that. So
it's
good
evocative.
On you. Yeah. Well, he's having fun with titles twice in exactly the same way. So I'm not sure how fun that is. But still, in its own right, that's a great title.
I didn't know about that doco.
Well, I haven't seen it, but
well, let's talk George Miller for a second.
Please.
Everybody knows George Miller for the Mad Max films. That's
you're
the
making
obvious.
assumptions.
Really? You didn't?
I have never seen a Mad Max film.
Wow.
And I started to...
Not even Fury Road?
Well, that's not how I roll.
That's not how you roll. Yeah.
No, so I started watching the original one, got 15 minutes through, just thought I cannot sit through another minute of this, put it aside.
What?
This was in prep for this.
Yep.
For this.
Yep.
And then because it's been so long, I thought I'll try it again. And I did another 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And actually started to get into it.
Right.
But then,
But then gave up still.
Well, I know I had to go and do something else, wash the dishes or something.
No, not that sad story.
Yeah. So, but now I'm actually excited to go back to it in order to get to Fury Road because I now realise that I haven't been part of the universe that's loved it so much.
Yeah. So I've seen Mad Max 1, 2, 3 and Fury Road, but the only one of those older Mad Max films that I've rewatched is the original Mad Max, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty great. However, it feels dated. It's a film from the 80s, and Fury Road is wonderful and stands up. I rewatched that recently. It still stands up beautifully. It's from 2015, I think it was. It's a great film. So good. Furiosa is being made at this moment, I believe. That's an exciting character. Charlize Theron plays that character in Fury Road. So it's going to be, and probably she's the character that stands out the most in that film, even though you could say it's a Tom Hardy flick. Aside from that, he's done this really interesting spectrum of films. There's Witches of Eastwick, Lorenzo's Oil, Happy Feet 1 and 2, Babe, Pig in the City.
Yeah.
It's an interesting selection of films. Yeah.
He spoke to that sort of thing about his eclectic behaviors with what he makes. And like with this film, for example, wedged up between Mad Max, Fury Road and Furiosa.
Yeah.
He called it, I think, a palate cleanser. I've forgotten what was the palate cleanser, but,
That's
going
great.
from one sort of vibe to another.
Yep.
And you can that makes sense to me.
Do you need a palate cleanser, Sal?
Sorry.
No, it's all right, man.
Hay fever.
Hay fever. Cool. Let it out.
Yeah, it was winter the last time we recorded.
It was. And spring has
Now
come.
it's spring.
It's in fury. Yeah.
I reckon we need to know more about the premise of this. Have you got
Yes.
any synopsis written down or something?
No, I don't. Should we jump onto IMDb real
I think
quick?
we should. We've forgotten the rules of
It'd be great though. It would be great if the Maestro read the synopsis
No.
sometimes. Not this time?
Not. I don't know.
Another time.
I think he's got a scratchy throat,
So-
Maestro.
Yeah.
It's just one line.
Is it?
Oh, is it? Well, okay.
I can read it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then change camera. Okay. A lonely scholar on a trip to Istanbul discovered a djinn
Gin.
A gin.
who offered her 3 wishes in exchange for his freedom.
For his
Wow.
freedom. Okay, so classic genie in a bottle story.
Yeah. So that was
On the surface.
So that was the Aladdin synopsis. Could you read the 3,000 years?
I can
Yeah.
tell you, that's 3,000 years of longing.
Okay.
And so you cannot think about this film without thinking of Aladdin, obviously,
Hmm.
because it's, this is the myth that we're talking about. Totally different from Disney's Aladdin, isn't it?
Well, where did the fact that everyone knows the rules of the 3 wishes come
Yeah.
from? So
Yeah.
did that come from Aladdin, or is that just
And the horror take on it, the monkey paw
yeah.
variety as well. But yeah, Disney's Aladdin was such a big film that, if you had missed it elsewhere, you got it from Aladdin, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, well, I guess this starts off by she arrives in her house and tell me how it starts.
She's giving a speech on a stage and she starts having visions of people that seem to be haunting her. And then she goes home and pulls out the old bottle. No, that's right. She's at a conference
Yes.
and she releases it there. And Idris Elba, the djinn, appears in her hotel room, very large and naked, and off it goes from there. And then the whole story takes place in a bunch of flashback storytelling
Yeah.
sequences from the djinn, explaining why you shouldn't ask for wishes in a certain way, and then more and more of his own backstory, which ties in beautifully with her own backstory, I think.
Yeah, it does. However, look, I'm going to go straight into what I don't like, even though
Yeah, please
I
do.
liked the film.
Yep.
Lucky.
On a whole, you were for it.
On a whole, I was not lukewarmly. Warmly,
You were lukewarm.
I was warmly for it.
Okay.
I wasn't,
You weren't hot for
it.
it. Yeah. Okay.
but I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I struggle with these films like the anthology type. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if you'd class this as an anthology film as such, but I struggle when you deviate from the main narrative like that.
Mm.
I found the storyline I was interested in was the one with Tilda and Idris, and how they carried on together and evolved. When it goes into these other stories, even if they're quite nice in themselves, I just don't want to be taken out and then come back in all the time. That breaks the spell for me.
Interesting, because it is a style, it's a choice, it's a type of storytelling that you see, often enough that I've got a bunch of reminds me ofs for it. It's definitely a style. I don't mind it. I actually quite like it if done well. Personally, I thought it was done fairly well here.
It was done well.
Yeah.
I agree. Just don't think it's my.
It's just a style choice you don't
thing.
go for as such. Yeah. Okay, I can understand that.
But
For
you go. What did you love?
Well, the things that I loved the most about it were the unexpected nature of most of the stories and just the really rich, beautiful world building that was going on within each of them.
Yeah.
And of course, George Miller, who knows how to put on a visual spectacle, is delivering that in spades with each of these little, flashbacks. And a lot of money's been thrown at it, you can tell. Interestingly, a lot of money thrown at a film that just still in some way doesn't feel very commercial, which is rare to see these days.
And the money is a bit hidden because you've got all that money thrown at these little vignettes. But the actual film, if you want to call it that, takes place in the hotel room with, I think that was during lockdown, actually, where they filmed that.
Makes sense.
That part. So therefore, it looks almost low budget or, not no bells and whistles. And the other bits feel like dream sequences, and therefore you almost don't credit the film for being theatrical and big budget.
It's interesting to think a little bit about what the more Hollywood version of this would be. And you're right. Setting it in a hotel room takes you in a different direction from that. Having Tilda Swinton be the hero takes you in a different direction because, I think if you were going more commercial, you would choose a younger actress, more of a starlet that would probably leave the hotel room and go on these adventures in some way with the djinn. And instead, it's very contained. You've got Tilda Swinton and, maybe an unusual pairing of Tilda and Idris. That's not something you would expect.
No.
But it's great. And they have great chemistry.
But there's not much for the kids to cling on to and relate to, though, is there?
No, there isn't.
And they're the ones that, I guess they're wanting to sell tickets with the marketing and everything. And and they're not. They may buy Tilda Swinton as Doctor Strange's mate, or whatever else she's done, but perhaps not as the leading lady. Even though she's great, I really did enjoy her. Yeah, even though she's very Tilda.
Yeah. What did you think about the variety of backstories that were presented?
Look, and this is my problem, that I don't find them very memorable. Like I remember being taken off with them at the time a little, and there were some funny moments. I think there was good bits of humour like that, the naked, naked women.
There was that one king or prince that was right into big women.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a funny segment.
Yeah, actually no jokes really, was it? It was just the sight gag.
It was sort of the absurdity of it.
Yeah.
But great. It was great.
Yeah, just none of them really stuck with me because, I don't know, maybe it's because I saw bloody 20 films and it was just one of them. And then when you've seen 20 films, 20 stories, then you get one film that has another 5 in it or whatever it has. That's a lot to take in. And maybe the context of how I saw it at MIF might have
in a
tired
festival
me out.
Filled with stories. Did you see any shorts while you were there?
No.
So you were they were still all features.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's nothing like a shorts block to mess you up in terms of 10 different stories happening all within 90 minutes or something.
Which ones kind of got you?
As much as I liked all of the stuff from his past, I think what the best storyline, the most interesting storyline was his and Tilda's.
Yeah.
I was longing to get back to the hotel room and see what was going to happen next as much as anything, because that's the A story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We eventually got back there and stayed there for a journey, didn't we, at the end?
Yep.
And that's when I started to commit a little bit.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot in this film. So one of the reasons why I really want to see this again is I feel like there's a lot in it that I've probably missed. It feels like a film that's quite full. Probably a lot of symbolism, probably a lot of imagery that just went right over my head.
Yeah.
And so it deserves a second viewing for that alone. And also because it's a sort of film I think I'd like to see at home rather than in a really packed cinema.
What where you can see it in maybe like 4 or 5 stages, just 30-minute blocks.
Even just have a drink and sit back in the couch and just sort of absorb it,
Yeah, well, look, maybe that's another homework episode.
Maybe
we'll come
the
back
track
to this film.
One of the things that you've just brought up about not anthology, but stories within stories within stories, flashbacks, flash forward type storytelling, it does remind me of a show that I'm watching on TV right now called The Midnight Club, which is Mike Flanagan's latest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I saw that advertised. I've got to get a piece of that.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh,
it's
you're not selling it. Yeah,
well, no, I'm just going to say it's not as good as The Haunting of Hill House, but then nothing else has been since he did that.
And The Haunting of Bly Manor was a step down as well.
It
from
was.
memory.
Yeah, I enjoyed Midnight Mass, but I also think it wasn't as good. And this one I also think is not as good. But what it does have in it is a group of characters that every night meet at midnight and tell each other a story. And the stories are always a ghost story or a horror story of some sort, but they always include elements of their past. So you've got mythology and their own past kind of blending together and creating more meaning that way.
It's the old kind of framing device is an oft-used thing. And like I mentioned Bly Manor, which was based on Turn of the Screw, which I've mentioned a few times, and that's got framing devices in it where, it's a story within a story. And I'm reading Frankenstein at the moment.
Really?
Which is also narrative within narrative, which is sort of cool. It makes it feel a bit magical when you get to the real story within the story.
Wow. So do you have any reminds me ofs for this? Shall we move on to that?
I think we should.
Kind of started it. That wasn't on my list, but it popped into my head as you were describing this type of storytelling.
Well, I'm just going to throw one out without talking too much about it because it relates to that type of anthology stuff. French Dispatch, which I saw recently, Wes Anderson.
Yep.
Also starring Tilda, who is again very Tilda. Mm-hmm. And that's just beautifully shot. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just sumptuous. The colours and it's just an amazing work of art.
Yes.
And yet,
please don't let me interrupt you.
And yet, because of these whole lot of stories side by side, I couldn't get into it. I could appreciate it as wonderful.
Yep.
But I couldn't get into it in an emotional
Isn't that
level.
funny? See, in that case, I agree with you entirely. I found that film really hard to enjoy and get into. I know some people love it, and I think it was the relentless shifting from one story to the next that did it for me. It made it really hard for me to connect. Yeah. And yet this film, I didn't find that same issue.
Well, in fairness, this film, 3,000 Years, has a stronger central through line.
Yeah, yeah.
So that really, like I said before, it does eventually kind of pay off when you do start to invest and get some real runs on the board with their relationship.
Absolutely. I think that a story of Tilda and Idris carries you through because it is such a strong story.
You go.
Okay, so I had one that I could not stop thinking about the entire time I was watching this.
Ooh. Wow, it is
Dramatic
so
thunder.
stormy.
Yes, so
that was so perfect.
Interview with a Vampire.
Okay, keep talking. I like it.
So we've got a mythical creature.
Yeah.
In this case, a vampire instead of a djinn. We have a storyteller, in this case, a reporter instead of a professor of storytelling or whatever she was. And you have a series of stories being told by the mythical creature to the storyteller about their past. And that same format of returning back to the two characters in a room, having a chat, flashing back to the story from the past. Just the format, couldn't escape it. Plus the whole, basically we have a mythical creature here telling a story of their past.
I think you can drop the mic right there. I think that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice one. Okay, let's call
Let's
it.
wrap it
Maestro.
up.
Yeah, we're done. No, what else you got?
Oh, well, no, actually, no, I think I can beat that.
Okay, good.
I'm going to say, and I don't know if this is a cop-out because it's a George Miller film. You've already made reference to it, but it is Witches of Eastwick.
Okay. You know, I can't remember this film, so tell me, please.
Tell you?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's these three women, and they make a wish for a man to basically come and fulfill all their wishes.
Right.
I think Cher, who is one of them, it's Michelle Pfeiffer White Gold. Who else? Cher and Susan Sarandon.
Wow. That's
Great
right.
cast.
Yeah. Awesome.
And they're all great. And Jack Nicholson is
the man.
the man.
Wow. Okay.
That gets plopped in.
Beautiful.
So they make the wish and then it comes true. And Cher actually wishes, and I wrote it down, she wishes for a foreign prince living under a curse.
Okay.
And then he arrives and just sort of makes all their dreams come true.
Why would you wish for someone who's living under a curse?
I don't know.
Okay.
But
all right. Don't
Don't
ask too many questions.
So this is women and essentially a genie.
Yeah.
It's more a devil in Jack Nicholson's case, but still a wish fulfiller.
Yep.
Which is the same, exploring the same territory precisely.
That's interesting. There's a theme he's interested in that's come back around.
Yeah, and I was trying to think, what does this say about the man? Does it say that he's really just sensitive and interested in what women want? Does it say he's obsessed with women and what they want? Does it say he's just really good at conveying a female character? Because I think he did that well with Tilda Swinton, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm a bloke. How would I know?
Yep.
But
True.
Thanks for your support.
No worries, man. What do we know?
What do we know? Another similarity with them was that both films tend to meander a bit. Like there is, you don't feel that you know exactly where it's going, and it just sort of moves shapelessly.
I want to see it. Did you see it recently? Did you rewatch
yes.
it?
No. I not rewatch it. I watched it
First time.
for the first time.
Wow.
Because I was surprised by it, actually. I reckon I was at movie-going age when it came out and always just dismissed it as some bubblegum nonsense. But I was impressed that it's more than that. Like it really is quite an interesting film.
No doubt with George Miller at the helm. That makes sense to me. Wow. Okay. I don't know why I'm so surprised and impressed that you watched one of his back catalogue ahead of this, but that's great. I have one to throw your way. The Red Violin. Have you seen that?
You're going to have to explain that film.
Okay. So The Red Violin follows a violin that was created, I'm going to say in France. I'm just guessing where it's created. In Europe somewhere. A long time ago. 1600s. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
And the guy who creates it, the violin maker, uses his dead wife's blood to color the lacquer that he paints on the outside of it, because he's just so distraught she's died, and in doing so kind of curses this violin. And then you follow the violin through the ages as it passes through different people's hands, and everybody who possesses the violin has horrible things happen to them.
Oh.
And each one is a little vignette, as you follow this thing. It really reminded me of the backstory of the djinn, the curse that keeps rolling around as everybody who comes in contact with him and his wishes goes badly.
Yeah, those stories about just inanimate objects are cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've done like writing exercises or something where they say, okay, take a $20 note or a boot and just tell the story of that as it goes through life and changes hands and that sort of thing.
Totally.
Which is an interesting device.
It's a cool device. I think I heard a little sound over there, Maestro. Have you seen The Red Violin? No?
No, but I heard of it.
You have? Okay. Awesome. It's a beautiful film. Recommended. And hard to find. It's another one that's just fallen off the radar. It's a little hard to come across.
Okay. Well, I think that's going on the homework episode list.
Homework episode
I think we
list.
need to be a bit more honest with honest is not the right word. But getting our homework done.
Actually watching the homework list.
Yeah.
For sure.
The Red Violin.
Thank you, Maestro. That means we're getting close to time. So what else have you got? Have you got another reminds me of for the list?
Let's wrap it up any second, but I've got a quick one.
I've got a quick one too, so you go first.
Awesome. I was reminded by those little records that kids get. I think they called them long-playing storybooks or something. There's a record. This is, again, showing my age.
What are you talking about? Okay, explain it.
You got a little record and a book, and the record, you'd play the record and it tells you the book.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think this is probably a book in its own right, but I
know these are CDs with a book, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be right.
Okay, great.
Yep. But the originals were little records.
And now it's MP3s or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
now it's Spotify.
so there's this book, record book, called There's No Such Thing as a Dragon.
Okay.
And this little boy imagines maybe this dragon who just appears in his house and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and like fills the house, and his neck starts going out the windows and all this sort of stuff. There is no real narrative comparison between the two, but it's called That Reminds Me Of, and the image of Idris Elba hunched, unable to fit in the house, as well as the idea of the imaginary friend who exists completely to the person, but then, is invisible perhaps to the rest of the world, to the two ladies, including Mrs. Bishop next door.
Yes.
Did you get
No, Mrs. Bishop. I'm not getting it still.
Okay, 3,000 Years of Longing. There's the two women next door. One is from Neighbours.
Really?
Yes.
Well, there you go. I would never have known that. Maybe Edith would have known that.
Yeah,
She
maybe.
probably did.
Anyway, there's no such thing as a dragon.
Right.
Look it up. Homework.
Okay, good. That moment just quickly did also remind me of Alice in Wonderland.
Which moment?
The giant Idris inside the house, and having just come out of a little bottle. I know that's nothing like Alice in Wonderland, but there was just something about the image that was so striking and reminded me of that in a way.
You know what? It's just all falling into place about this film with me.
Okay.
That was great. Like that book with the dragon was a great memory for me.
Yeah,
I loved that. And then all of a sudden you got Idris Elba and not fitting in the room, and I'm looking ahead in the film and thinking, oh, there's so much that they can do here. It's this huge thing. How are they what can they play with?
Yep.
And then to be taken out of it when I'm just getting excited.
Right.
I think that just disturbed me. So
Yeah.
the A story that you refer to was probably so good that I was annoyed with the rest.
Good. Okay, last one for me.
Yes.
The Storyteller series by Jim Henson. Don't know if I brought this up before.
I think I have.
But I was really reminded of that simply because you've got that great setup of a strong storyteller going, let me take you into the past, into a myth, into a story of mythology, and then you're whisked off and you're in it. It's been often done many, many, many times, but I think The Storyteller is one of the best of them. So
I think I may be half familiar, but not really familiar with it. But they are fully realised little stories, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
So that
is more of an anthology series.
That's the Twilight Zone, or Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I like.
Which is, clearly a reference for this kind of storytelling. Absolutely.
Are we done?
I think we need to throw to the Maestro just to ask about his experience
of MIF.
So because he was there too.
Yeah. So while you just bailed on us, the Maestro saw a couple of films I know that I saw and really enjoyed. So I would like to know what the top hits of MIF were for the Maestro.
Yes, please.
So first of all, to the organizer of MIF, bravo. Very good.
Agree.
List of titles. Like you, Alex, I wish I could see 20 movies, but I barely saw 3 of them. So I start with The Crime of the Future, which is not my typical genre of movies. In fact, I really probably didn't appreciate much.
This is Cronenberg's latest film.
Yes, and surprisingly, I saw people laughing at some incredible, silly situations. So I didn't even understand if actually it was the intention of Cronenberg to do that.
Yeah.
So it was a bit strange, but I think I want to watch that again. Second one was the Triangle of Sadness,
Yep. Ruben Ostlund's latest.
Yes,
which is beautiful.
isn't it?
Great acting. I do have a remind me of, but probably if we see this movie and we want to have an episode of this,
I think we want to do this film.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I also saw it. As you know, Sal, I rated it highly, and I can think of a few reminds me of straight off the cuff. So I reckon we hold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I reckon we hold it and wait and do it properly.
And then I saw a docu-film shot in my hometown of Naples, and said a bit of a really...
It was hide and seek, yeah?
Yeah, hide and seek. And very well shot, interesting director, and I think she's Italian, but she lives in Brazil.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember her name, sorry. But very well shot, and English DOP. And yeah, and was so well done. My wife came with me. She didn't know there was a docu-film, and she actually thought that there was a movie. And all the people featuring in that docu-film was actually real people. And with harsh reality in some of the areas of Napoli, and very well done. Great selection. Well done, guys.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
You know what? I just tried to look up hide and seek in IMDb just to be awesome and like drop in the director's name, but I've got every other hide and seek ever made showing up, and not the correct one. It didn't have Robert De Niro and Dakota Fanning in it. No, yeah.
I can have a look.
We'll find it. We'll find it.
That's a good segue actually to what our next episode is going to be.
Yes.
And I think we can say with some confidence that it will be on the movie titled The Stranger.
Correct.
And I say it's a segue because something that annoys me a little bit is when people call movies the same bloody thing. So hide and seek, why would you call something hide and seek when there are several other hide and seeks?
So many, yes.
Why would you call something The Stranger when Albert Camus wrote The Stranger a million years ago, and there's been several movies called The Stranger? There was another movie called The Stranger at MIF.
Really?
There were two The Strangers.
Oh, no. That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we are going to talk about that film in the next episode, so let's just hold it.
Okay.
We'll get into all of this soon.
Wasting my material.
You're wasting it. Good
episode
material. This is very podcast-worthy material for the next episode.
Excellent. It's been good chatting, Baron. I nearly forgot your name.
Yeah, beautiful.
And the Maestro.
Hi, everyone.
All right. See you guys.